Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabad House of Delmar, together with my co-host Mark Ronich of Statewide News Service, jbiztechvalley.com, and as you can see, a columnist for the Jewish Press.
And I have a column there called Albany Beat, which I talk about how government relates to the Jewish community, or it doesn't, as the case may be. It's a real honor. But speaking of another honor, our guest here today is Mark Levine from Levine Memorial Chapel. And if there's two things in life that are certain, it's death and taxes. And
I'll say he's in a good business then over here, right,
yep,
Mark?
correct.
Good to
We
hear.
can't
so, hey,
take-
welcome to the Jewish View.
Thanks for having me. I
Mark, let
appreciate
me
it.
talk. Everybody went to the Lubavitcher Rebbe for a blessing. So everybody's this business, that business. So one Undertaker comes to the Rebbe, Lubavitch Undertaker, and the Rebbe said, "For you, I don't give a blessing."
Yeah,
over
you're covered.
But still, we're doing a good job.
Thanks for having me.
You do when you need them, you need them.
Well, that brings me to a point, because you use the term Undertaker. And
Right.
what's the difference?
Now, I mean, the more modern term would be funeral director.
Is that more PC?
Undertaker, it's
More politically correct? Or?
rarely do you hear, but I think in New York State, they used to issue 2 years ago licenses. I believe there was an Undertaker's license, I think, and an embalmer's license. But yeah, very rarely do you hear the term.
Well, not since the 1850s,
Undertaker,
I
correct,
guess, right?
yeah.
When they-
Yeah, very
Not that
rarely.
old
But
already, right.
but yet some older folks,
Yeah.
in commerce, I sat with families making arrangements, and they'll get a call from a family member, and can I call you back? I'm here with the Undertaker. So, you hear
Still
it,
a
but
term, all right.
yeah, it's still.
I'm not
but,
that old over
Yeah,
Mark.
right. So I guess funeral director is more the modern.
So what is the most difficult part of the job for you? I mean, because this is a very sensitive time in someone's life. So.
Most difficult part, every day is different. Some days you're dealing with someone who, has a loss, comes in to make arrangements. The person's in their, 90s. You're going through the arrangements, you offer your condolences, and family proceeds to tell you almost, we're happy, it's a blessing, she's been at XYZ nursing home for 5 years, she hasn't been able to converse with us. So this is I guess a good thing on their part, but on the other hand, it's a lot different when you're sitting across the desk with a family that's just lost their 16-year-old son in a motor vehicle accident or a tragic situation. So every day is very different.
Yeah.
I would say, when it's a younger person like that or a sudden death, very difficult to. They're the most
I
difficult.
think
To-
for
to
Rabbi
get-
also, Mark.
Well, that's what I was just going to ask you. Do you ever have clergy with you when you're meeting with the people for the first time?
We recommend, there's many times that people, the families have reached out to clergy
Before you.
prior to them, calling us, and the clergy's been supportive of coming, with the family to go over the arrangements. So that's.
Do you recommend that someone who's not a family member or not the bereaved be with the person? Because
Yeah,
at this time of bereavement, you just can't take
People
in
aren't
all
thinking
of these.
clearly, and
Right.
it's a major event in someone's life, and it's a date and a time that you'll never forget. When I lost my father, you remember that date of February 9th at 10:17 a.m. I still remember the room that my father passed in at St. Peter's Hospital. So it's an event, it's a day you never forget.
you're
But I do think it's advantageous when someone else comes in. We've made arrangements when the families, come in with a neighbor or a friend, and
You talk about your father because
Yeah.
you go back in history because I was friends with him too, and the start of the business. And you obviously took over. It's always
Your
always
father's
been
name
this-
is Robert.
Robert, yeah.
And
just
everyone loved
father-son
him.
business.
Yeah, he started it in Albany in
1952.
1952, and he started down on Lower Madison Avenue in Albany, and then we moved over to Delaware Avenue and the current location on Washington Avenue. We've been there since 1968 or 69.
Where in Delaware were you?
Delaware was number 230. It was at the corner of Delaware and Mona Terrace. So
Okay.
it's now, I believe it's a dental lab.
Okay.
You know, very small
Uh-huh.
facility, and
And that's because a lot of the Jewish community was down there also at the time.
that and the Jewish community, yeah, in that general
Area.
you know, the Delaware Avenue area. And my father moved one day. The move was really pushed, that he got a letter from when they were doing the South Mall project that a road might be coming through, you know, Delaware through your funeral home. So it was, you know,
Time to
did some
move
fast
over.
did some fast maneuvering, and you know, a year later we're on Washington Avenue. So.
And the road never got
And the
there.
road never, no, it's still, yeah, they did road repairs, but the building
I
still
think Mona Terrace,
stands.
they did a repaving, or they did
They
some
did,
digging,
there
and they
was
found
some almost
bones.
like, exactly, that's right,
Really?
very good, yeah. It was about maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I remember a whole
Yeah.
excavation, and
That wasn't
there was
leftovers from
something.
your...
Yeah, no, I said
No?
that, yeah,
That
that's when I
wasn't
first thought
leftovers.
that, when I saw it on the television, that they're archaeologists digging for what, it was like, oh my God, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember going by there and looking at they had it all cordoned off.
So
and-
just for the record, this has nothing to do with anything you left behind, or your
No,
father
I
left
would,
behind? No,
yeah,
okay.
I say we
I
didn't
heard
leave
that they were
anything-
Indian, I think they were Indian bones.
Yeah,
that
I
they
think
were
you're right,
there.
yeah, but
Native
it's
American.
just, you know, kind of a light goes on, and you say, oh my God, that was right there, you know, and Dad, I hope you didn't,
What
yeah.
made you want to go into this business? I mean, you see what your father had to deal with. You grew up seeing how his, you know, no matter any time of day, you know, you might get a phone call from a family. You have to be on the spot. I mean, it's not an easy life.
No, not at all.
I mean, but it's something that you really desired.
Yeah, since I was a kid, I remember going with my father, you know, on calls, you know, at night. Since I was a little kid, and I always wanted to do this. And
what struck you? What was it that
I
when
think you meet a lot of nice people. I think the interaction with the, you know, with the families, and you're doing something, yeah, there's some gratification. You know, you'll get a nice letter after the, you know, after the service, you know, services that are provided. And, you know, I saw a lot of, you know, my father making, you know, a lot of contacts in the community, and I just said, this is for me. You know, I could never understand sometimes when, you know, you talk about public relations, and we'd go into a restaurant or whatever, like the old Joe's catering, and, you know, my father and I would go in for dinner, and I'm sitting in the booth for, you know, 45 minutes wondering, like, you know, what is he doing, you know? And I said, Dad, come on, you know, I'm hungry. What do you do? Someday you'll understand, you know, he said.
Well, at least he
So it
wasn't
was
lining up
schmoozy.
business.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was like someday you'll understand what it's all about.
Now you
But,
understand. Okay.
But thank God the transition was easy. After he passed, it wasn't like, wow, I've got to learn this business. You know, it was just
Pretty smooth, yeah.
It was a
Because
very
you were at
smooth-
Riverside before, you did some training or some work at Riverside.
Yeah, yep. down
Before you came
in
up
the
here to work
city,
with your
and-
father, yeah.
Yeah, yep. My father worked at Riverside, Manhattan for like 12 years before he came up here to open up on his own.
And then you went to Riverside to work before
Just
you
he
worked.
arranged. I went to, yeah, Riverside for, you know, a week or two at a time, and then I went to, there happens to be another Levine
Yeah.
funeral home on Harvard Street in Brookline, Mass. So, you know, my father said, you need to see, you know, how other,
Right.
you know, businesses do it, and everything's not, you know, it's a learning experience. So, you know, they were doing, you know, high volume of, you know, funerals, and, you know, you got to see a lot. It was not uncommon. My father tells the story, one of the busiest days that he had at Riverside was, I think there was a Jewish holiday on a Thursday, Friday, and Shabbos, obviously. No, sir, they had like 32 funerals on one Sunday
Really?
out of one building at 76th in Amsterdam, and, you know, it was just,
One
Right.
thing after
yeah,
another.
yeah, right there.
How many funerals do you do?
We service probably 200 families a year.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
A year.
A year,
So-
200 families a year.
So that's like 4 a week?
About 4 services a week.
And do you only do Jewish cemeteries or just mostly
Technically,
Jewish?
you cannot discriminate if you get
No.
a non-Jewish family. We serve
But-
them, but I always tell people, we don't have a lot of people named O'Brien beating down our door.
Well, you had a couple, but
yeah,
anyway.
I
But I just want, who were
Very good,
Jewish.
yeah.
But did you have, have you had non-Jews?
Oh, yeah. We've had
As-
situations, I'll give you a few examples. Our former UPS man, that was delivering to us for 20 years, lost his mother, and they were from over East Greenbush. And, when she passed away, he said to, my wife and I, that you're the first person we thought of. And, could you handle things? And, so we handled things and,
Did they need a cross in there for anything?
No, the funeral, nothing was really in our building.
Oh.
It was all over in, actually it was out of one was like at the RPI Cultural Center.
Okay.
One service, and some were right at the gravesite.
So you just did the
Graveside service.
administration
Yeah.
to make sure the
Yeah.
casket got to the right place?
Yeah,
and all
pretty
that.
much, you pretty much do everything, and you find out what, clergy they want to use, and,
So what's easier, Jewish funeral or non-Jewish funeral?
It's I don't know. That's a different. There's a big difference. I'll tell you. It's I'll talk to a lot of colleagues, that non-Jewish funeral homes. Okay, and a lot of times they're dealing with people for 3 days from the time from the wake, and flowers and going to the church. There's a lot more involved. Where it's harder for us is that time factor. When you get a call at 5 o'clock in the morning at St. Peter's Hospital, and you ask the family, what are your general thoughts as far as a service? Well, it's going to be today. We have everything scheduled for 2 o'clock at Beth David Cemetery down in Elmont, Long Island. It's so you go into your fast mode
timeline. Yeah, that's right,
and
yeah.
and then it can be difficult because you want to accommodate everyone, but sometimes if you have maybe a service, 1 or 2 services scheduled
Right.
that day, you have to divert people. So I say sometimes it's almost like an air traffic controller where you get a bleep on your screen, and you have to kind of.
Do you have more than one room in your funeral home to accommodate more than one?
We don't. We only do
one at a time?
one
Because
service.
Riverside has
And
like
it's a multiple. Yeah, they have
have-
4
you
floors.
have to take an elevator.
Elevator. They have a elevator operator.
Right.
And,
So, Did you ever think of doing something?
Not really.
No?
This area, what we find, we're doing a lot of our funerals now compared to 10 years ago. We're not in the building, not at Levine's anymore. We're doing a lot of graveside funeral services.
Why do you think that is?
I think some people, they look at it as the person who passed might be up there in years, and they've outlived their friends.
Right,
So,
right.
they sometimes think the chapel might be too, large of a
There's just not enough
facility.
people gonna
Some
come.
people
Right.
do it for economical reasons. Some people but I find mainly if people are just going to have a small gathering, we're seeing more and more graveside services. We're seeing more and more like families that we serve in the Schenectady, Niskayuna
Right.
area. A lot of these folks are used to using the temples for the service as opposed to the
Coming into
chapel.
Albany.
Yeah, as opposed to, Clifton
That's
Park
interesting,
will
yeah.
use.
Mark, really, we could do a whole show about what an Orthodox funeral is. Really, it's intricate. But just a few things, just for our viewers, that certain things are different than Orthodox, and I know that you cater to
Preparation.
whoever wants to come. Then you have
Right.
an open.
Right.
Do you recommend a process if they don't know? And then they say, well, tell me, what should I do?
We've
can't
had many
think."
people
Do
that
you,
will-
do you talk about the Tahara and the
Oh, yeah.
you know?
We'll get people that'll call, they'll say, Mark, Jane, my wife, we've never done this before. We're
Yeah.
new at this.
Right.
We should thank God.
Thank
we've been
God,
through
right.
this. So we have no cemetery plot. We.
But do
my
you,
mother
but
never-
do you do it by, let's say, a reform
Yeah,
type
we'll
of thing,
guide
or an
them,
Orthodox type of thing, or what do
We'll
you?
guide them. They'll say, well, did your mother, did your father, your sister, did she belong to any congregation? No, we're non-affiliated.
Right.
At that point, we'll tell them the options as far as if they opt for burial. We'll say there's Reform, Conservative, and Orthodox cemeteries in the, greater capital district. And, we recommend, where you're going to be most, we tell them the differences between, between the, let's say
different
the
sects,
cemeteries, like there's certain cemeteries that, for instance, Beth Emeth Cemetery, where, the deceased, they're allowed to be in their clothing as opposed to a shroud and a tahara. We know the cemeteries that require the shroud and the tahara.
I see. But others allow you to be buried in clothing.
Yeah, yeah. And, some people even, but yet we've gone to Reform Jewish cemeteries where people still lean toward the traditions and the deceased is buried, in the tahara, or the shroud.
It hasn't gotten to the point where they're so liberal where they have an open casket, though, right?
No, the only time we see that very, very, I can't remember.
Okay.
The only time when you say open casket, what we see quite a bit when we're making arrangements, we'll say, Mark, Rabbi, on Tuesday, do you want to see your mother or father? Do you want a few minutes by yourselves?
Right,
And
right.
At that point, what we do, the family will, they'll arrive at the chapel and we'll close the doors to the chapel so they can have some privacy. We open the casket, we leave them by themselves.
Yeah.
for
But I
5
meant that in
minutes.
terms of
Yeah,
at the
but as
grave.
far as an open casket,
Right.
we tell them, once the clergy it has to be,
Okay.
it has to be closed.
Okay.
And,
So there are some
there's some that,
rituals that span all types of
Yeah,
sects of Judaism.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what, go
Now,
ahead, talk of,
Well, one is the casket itself, and there are so many laws, like I say, it could really take up our whole half hour, but just very short. The Orthodox Judaism, I should say, that the casket should be wooden. 'Cause
All
from-
wood constructed.
From the
Ashes,
original
ashes,
sense
dust.
is from,
Right.
you came from ground, you go to ground, so the
Right.
wood obviously is going to.
and those are all we only show, wood caskets that meet that, criteria.
the body leaves the world the way it entered.
And,
Yeah.
well, to dust.
Right.
Because it
Yeah.
says in the Bible, in the
From-
Chumash, you came from dust.
It's-
Return to
now
dust.
you return to dust.
Right. For dust you are, and to dust you shall return.
Same with
And
the,
wood also will, but metal, that's what the
Metal would-
economists will say, metal.
would
take
prolong
effect.
what
The casket should be made, according to Jewish law, from soft wood.
wood, yep, which means poplar. People, we'll offer maybe 15 offerings of like traditional caskets, from the plain pine casket, to poplar, which is a soft wood, with a finish on it. The main difference is, like, we'll ask people, if they've given a thought, do they want something unfinished, natural wood, or something with a finish on it? But, they're all wood. It can be pine.
And they have to
mostly-
have dowels.
Yeah, they're all, any kosher Jewish Orthodox casket or traditional casket is made with all dowels, no metal.
And
Even
holes
to
on the
hinge
bottom?
has holes, on the bottom. And, and it meets all the criteria of,
So what's
Orthodox Jewish.
what's a chevra kadisha?
Were you asking me or the?
No, I'm asking Mark. I'm asking
All
Mark.
right.
Okay, Chevra is, as I understand it, Chevra Kadisha is a committee or a group of individuals who actually do the tahara, which is the preparation of someone, in a shroud, prepare the person for burial. They'll come in, they'll do the, like I said, what's called the tahara, and dress the person in a shroud, and put the Israeli soil, with the person, so they're preparing that person for the proper traditional burial. I think the group as a whole would be the These are the people that
Right.
oversee.
You're supposed to ask, why do you put Israeli soil in a grave. Why Albany soil is not good enough?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm asking.
All right, so
Yeah.
if you're asking, then I'll answer you. And that is this really on the positive note that when the Messiah comes, I hate to say Mark's going to be out of business because everybody will live forever.
right.
That's what the doctors also complain. Rabbi, you want the Messiah? No one will be
Yeah, we'll be,
sick. I will be
well,
out of business.
Uh-huh.
So in any case, that there will be, and it is a tenet. It is very mystical, but it's a tenet, basic tenet of Judaism, that when the Messiah comes, the dead will all rise from their graves. So, and we all want to live in Israel.
Okay.
So
You start with the soil. Okay.
start with the soil. So they're kind of buried. That's why a lot of people get transferred, and that's another good question. Transferred to get buried
In Israel.
In
in Israel. So
Yeah.
you do a lot
We
of
have our
transfer.
we have our share.
So-
Maybe 4 families a year that opt for burial in Israel.
So
have
let
to
me
prepare
ask
them
you
for
this
a plan.
question as a Kohen, which I'm a Kohen. I just wanted to ask you, do you have any way for Kohanim to feel like they're a part of
Yeah,
the
we
service?
can.
You know what, Mark, let me explain to the viewers.
Go right
You're
ahead.
jumping
I am.
because, I'll let Mark
But we have
answer
10
it.
minutes left, and I
All
just
right,
want to
but
get so
but
much in.
I don't
so.
know if the viewers understand it. You're a Kohen, which means you're from the priestly class.
Right.
So therefore, you have more restrictions on you. One of them is once a person goes into a cemetery, they become impure. So the Bible says you're a holy man, you shouldn't be impure. So therefore, the Kohanim, these priestly class, are restricted from going to cemeteries. All right, now setting the stage now. Mark over here.
We're geared
Mark
up.
wants to go to funerals, so really in
Yeah,
a way
we're
he's
geared up
frustrating.
where someone could stay outside.
Right.
And we can, have the funeral, not, right now, it's, audio.
Okay,
Or
because that's
where
what-
they can still, be a part of it.
But it has to be off your property.
Usually in front of the building, yeah, we have a speaker outside.
But you can't
But
enter
I,
the property line.
depends on how far, yeah, I mean,
So how do you?
most people have, that I've seen have been comfortable just staying like near the curb,
Right, the curb.
area, and they can still hear
Hear it? Okay.
hear the service.
Now, what about live streaming the funeral?
Live streaming?
Does that cost
we've
extra for
done it.
someone?
No, we were doing it. We're upgrading, that now. We've had families that, I guess it would, you call it webcasting, where
Yeah.
it's been very common. If you go on, if you do a Google search for Jewish funeral homes,
Yeah, right.
there's a lot of funeral homes doing it. You can just
Right.
click on,
And-
so
and
Aunt
for-
Tilly, who can't be
Be
here.
there, or they're far away in
It's
another
the next
country,
best
whatever,
thing, yeah.
they could still. It's
Exactly.
not just for Kohanim, it's
Right,
for
so
other,
we're upgrading, our system as far as, that goes.
and it
but
won't cost the
no,
bereaved
no,
family
we look
extra.
at it as a service it's just another way to,
Okay.
serve the family.
All right, and then what about, now cremation is not allowed according to Jewish law, but have you cremated?
We've
or-
seen somewhat of an increase, not a lot, but.
But you do do it,
We
or-
do it, yeah,
Why?
we do it. The families they know their options, and, we had a call yesterday where a family's weighing out, this person is, not
Yeah.
doing well. They're weighing out cremation,
Right.
versus the traditional
But why
burial.
would you go that way and even offer it as an option? I mean, a friend of mine, Ben Myers from Myers Funeral
Right,
Home, he
right.
does cremations,
Right.
and he told me he's done some Jewish funerals also,
yeah,
and he's
yeah,
done cremation.
yeah.
But why would you even offer that if it's against Jewish law?
We tell people we're clear. We have a whole, pages made up that, if you opt for cremation, if this is your choice, it's a personal preference, with the family. I don't think you can't say no. I'm sorry, we're not interested.
Farm them out to
Yeah,
Myers
yeah,
Funeral
go
Home?
to see funeral home XYZ. But you tell them, that if they ask, we tell them that here you go. It's mostly the Reform community, that's
That does it,
interested in
yeah.
cremation. But,
Right.
what we have to be able to provide legally, we have what's called a general price list.
Yeah.
Okay, every funeral home has what's called a general price list with charges on our general price list. It has to list our your fees for cremation, so you cannot leave that off.
Okay.
But minimal, we do minimal.
I've also seen in other funeral homes that they have mausoleums and they have above ground burials.
Yeah, mausoleum.
And that's unheard of for me. I just can't, right? Isn't
There's
it unheard of?
community.
And no, I saw Florida because that's where my parents are buried.
But
Down
that's
the
not an
boat.
Orthodox way, is it?
They have different ways.
Yeah, there's
in
a
Israel,
huge
in caves,
mausoleum in, like in Paramus.
Yes,
I think
Cedar
called the
Park.
Abraham,
Seat of,
Seat of
yeah.
Ab-
And
yeah,
they're
or
doing that
Abraham,
in Israel because they're
Abraham
running
and
out
Sarah.
of space.
Yeah, they, yeah, where it's, I've seen it.
Cedar,
It's
Sanctuary of
Sanctuary of
Abraham
Ab-
and Sarah.
Sarah, right.
Right, Cedar Park and Bethel cemeteries. I know someone who's buried there, and I went with someone just to be the chauffeur.
Okay,
And-
yeah, no,
and
it's-
I
I've seen
saw
it.
that they're really promoting this mausoleum thing.
Yeah.
And they, and it's just
Here, there's no Jewish, we've had some at like Memory Garden Cemetery in Colony, but there's no, there's no Jewish cemetery that, really has a multiple space mausoleum. Like Beth Emeth Cemetery, they have a lot of family mausoleums there, where, 5 or 6 people in the family are within
An
the
area.
family mausoleum.
Uh-huh. Oh,
Yeah.
really?
But, oh yeah, we've had.
That's the one in Loudonville?
In Loudonville, yeah.
See, I never was.
Yeah, there's, there might be a half a dozen on the grounds, but
Okay.
we don't really get a lot of, most of ours are, families, we sort of opt for traditional
So,
burial.
it's interesting because here the cemeteries are run by the different synagogues, whereas downstate in New York City area,
Totally different, yeah.
it's totally different. It
Totally
has, you have these huge
There are
swaths
unions,
of
yeah,
land,
right.
Acres and acres of land that it just goes, it's endless.
Yeah.
And
Some
it
of them even
seems
have
endless.
street names.
And
believe it
some
or
they
not.
have
Yeah,
street
some
names,
street names.
Ezra, right?
Yeah,
And you got to
yeah.
name them,
Well,
right?
Abraham Boulevard.
So then you
yeah.
have and then they have sections for like Knights of Pythias Lodge
well,
and
exactly.
other types of
Society.
Brotherhood Lodge, Society
Very
Lodge,
common, yeah.
societies, and they have, they do it that way. Why?
Right.
What evolved here that, because you know the history, because I don't think there was another Jewish funeral home before
Yeah.
you.
No, the history. That's one of the obstacles that's difficult for us because, especially down the road, it's going to be difficult because in this Albany, Troy, and Schenectady area, and it's still that way.
Yeah.
They're referred to as cemetery chairmen.
Right.
Okay, a cemetery chairman could be defined as, one person who volunteers
Mm-hmm.
his or her services. Okay, and if we have a death, the cemetery, the first thing we're supposed to call the cemetery chairman. The cemetery chairman could be at his daughter's house in Teaneck, New Jersey,
Yeah.
without the records.
Right.
That doesn't do us,
Any good.
any good. So that's a frustration that we've come up across. There are certain communities that have community.
The cemetery chairman that I had known for many years, he had to say, you have to pay to lay.
I'm familiar
That
with
was-
who that is.
Yeah,
Yes,
you know who that is.
I'm,
Warshaw.
yeah,
Howard
yeah,
Warshaw, yeah. So, but he
Yeah.
said, you have to pay to lay.
Right, yeah, but yeah, Howard was good. He,
You know?
yeah, he had everything. He had great records.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
but it's just hard now that most, like in the greater, like I think it's called JCAM, in the greater like Boston area, I think it's Jewish Congregation Association Cemetery, JCAM or something like that. They have regular people on call where we've had a death on a Saturday night and the family wants the funeral Sunday. You call this number, it's an 800 number, and the person calls you back and they tell you the grave number.
Yeah.
Here, it's difficult if we had a death at this point in time now and the family wants the funeral tomorrow, we call the cemetery chairman. They might be out for the evening, and the family's asking us, well, what are we going to do? Well, gee, Levine's are,
Right.
everything's in order with us.
It's amazing that no entrepreneur took on, with so many unaffiliated Jews and Reformed, took on the option of buying these pieces of land and doing it like they do in New York City, because
Yeah.
land up here is a lot less expensive than
Yeah,
Long
sure.
Island, and
Yeah.
that they could have their own society plots and everything
Yeah.
do the same way here because there's so many unaffiliated Jews.
And there is a lot of, it's going to be a problem. It
Sure.
is a problem now. That's one of our major obstacles.
What is?
The
Space?
A lot of the Jewish, not space, but the way a lot of the Jewish cemeteries are managed in this area, that they're
Okay.
relying on one individual. And if the person, like I said, if the person's in the hospital or visiting his daughter in Teaneck, New Jersey, or in Las Vegas, you know, it makes it difficult for the family.
That's an impediment from your perspective.
Makes it difficult for everything goes smoothly on our end, you know, with the clergy and,
Sure.
you know, getting the casket there and making sure all the preparation and the obituary is done. But then you have to tell, well, I'm sorry, you know, well, you know, I don't have the maps, nor do I want to keep the maps. So I don't know what to tell you. So that's a
Interesting.
major obstacle.
And okay, so let me ask you, generally speaking, if someone's planning a funeral, if someone's long-term planning a funeral, $10,000, $20,000, what should be?
I would say 10. I would say between 8 and 10 would be, like right now, our average
For an
traditional.
Orthodox?
Same, yeah,
For
with
an
a
Orthodox?
traditional, yeah.
What about for like a Beth Emeth style, more?
The same,
you know.
basically the same, between 8 and
Because
8 and
wouldn't
10.
they have maybe not a pine box and
Yeah,
might they
might
have
go,
more, something
yeah.
more?
Or they might want additional services, let's say a graveside service. Most families that
Okay.
opt for a graveside service, they don't use limousines or, you know, if someone wants a sort of like a temple service, a lot of families, you know, want the transportation, you know, so that's all added expenses.
Okay.
Obituary notices in the paper, it's so much
Right.
per line.
Right.
You know, so there's a lot of options to keep, you know, things.
Okay, but you're saying no more
I
than-
would say our
like
average
15,000 is the upper
would
part of
be
it?
very much upper.
Okay.
Yeah, that's.
If you planned on saving
Not-
15,000, you had something left over?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that's what you want to plan
Yeah,
for, right?
exactly.
You don't
Yeah.
want to be
Alright.
caught
Yeah.
short.
Yeah.
So is there anything else you wanted to mention quickly that?
No, I think, no.
We covered a lot.
I appreciate
Okay.
you,
Well, maybe we'll
you
have
know,
to have
having
you
me.
back for some, you know, if the new
From,
trends
new
going
trends.
on.
You know,
Yeah.
Mark, at the end of every show, I give a blessing, but again,
Oh,
I give
yeah.
a blessing
Okay,
for good
well,
health.
yeah,
But
just-
everybody should live and be
Thank
healthy,
you.
and that's the main thing. But you're doing a good service to the
I
Jewish
agree.
community, so continue.
I appreciate you having me here, and, yeah, we're always.
Thank you
Anyone has any questions, they're always feel free to call us. And,
Okay,
yeah,
thank you
whatever
for
we can help
coming.
with.
Thank
Community's
you.
been very supportive of us. Okay.